Captain Sarah Chen stared at the flashing red light on her control panel. The signal was weak, barely coming through the static of deep space. Her ship, the Tenacity, was on a routine patrol along the outer edge of human territory. Nothing exciting ever happened out here. What do you make of it, Jensen? She asked her communications officer. Lieutenant Mark Jensen frowned at his screens. He had been working with alien signals for 3 years now, ever since humanity joined the Galactic Coalition. Most aliens thought humans were only good for dangerous jobs that other species would not do. Earth was what they called a death world, a planet so dangerous that only crazy creatures could survive there. It's definitely alien, Captain, but not from any coalition species I know. The signal is very old, maybe weeks. It's been bouncing around space for a long time. Sarah nodded.
Can you clean it up?
Make it clearer? I can try. Jensen's fingers moved across his controls. Slowly, the static began to fade. What came through next made everyone on the bridge go quiet. The voice was soft and musical, nothing like the harsh sounds humans were used to from most alien species. But the fear in that voice was something every human could understand. This is Elder Vyth of the Kythera people. Our world is dying. The hegemony came 3 days ago. Their ships block out our sun. They burn our cities and take our people. We tried to fight, but we are a peaceful race. We have no weapons, no warriors. They capture our young to work in their mines. They kill our old because they are useless to them. The voice broke, and Sarah could hear crying in the background. Other voices spoke in the same musical language, all filled with pain. We know no one will come. We are too far from coalition space. We have no allies, no trade agreements, nothing to offer. But if anyone receives this message, know that the Kythera existed. Know that we tried to live in peace. Know that we loved our children and our world. Do not let them forget us. The message repeated several times, then faded to static. Sarah's bridge was silent. Her crew of 30 humans stared at their screens or at each other. Finally, Ensign Rodriguez spoke up. Captain, I'm reading the signal's origin point. It came from the Kythera system, about 40 light years from here. That's really far from any coalition patrol routes. Sarah felt something hot and angry growing in her chest. She had seen war before, back on Earth. She had been a soldier in the water wars before joining the space service. She knew what it looked like when strong people hurt weak ones just because they could. Jensen, how old did you say this signal was? At least 3 weeks, maybe a month. It takes time for signals to reach us out here. So whatever happened to these Kythera people, it's probably over by now. Sarah's voice was quiet, but her crew could hear the anger in it. Most likely, Captain. The hegemony doesn't usually leave survivors when they attack a world. Sarah knew about the hegemony. Every species in the galaxy feared them. They were an empire that grew by taking over other worlds and forcing the people to work as slaves. The Coalition knew about them but never did anything. The Coalition liked to talk and hold meetings. They did not like to fight. What's our current mission status? Sarah asked her first officer. Commander Williams checked his tablet. We're supposed to patrol this sector for 2 more days, then return to Mars base for supplies. Nothing urgent, Sarah nodded slowly. She was thinking about the voice in that message. The fear, the sadness, the way the alien had said goodbye to their whole race. Captain, Jensen said quietly, there's something else. I've been running the signal through our translation programs. The Kythera language has some similarities to old Earth languages. These people, they're a lot like us. They live in family groups, they make art, they tell stories. They're not so different from humans, that made it worse. Sarah could imagine Kythera children being taken from their parents. She could imagine their cities burning while they had no way to fight back. William, send a message to Coalition Command. Tell them we intercepted a distress signal from the Kythera system. Request instructions. Yes, Captain. 3 hours later, the reply came back. Sarah read it twice before speaking. They want us to file a report when we return to base. They'll forward it to the proper committee for review. They estimate it will take 6 to 8 months for the Coalition Council to decide what to do. The bridge went quiet again. 6 to 8 months. The Kythera had been dead for weeks already, that's it? Rodriguez asked. That's all they're going to do? Sarah crumpled the message in her hand. She thought about her own daughter back on Earth. She thought about what she would want someone to do if her child was crying for help in the darkness of space. Jensen, can you boost our communications array? Send a message back to human space? Sure, Captain. Where do you want to send it? Sarah looked around at her crew. These were good people. They had all volunteered to serve in space far from home, protecting worlds they had never seen. They understood what it meant to help others. Send it everywhere. Every human colony, every ship, every station. I want every human in space to hear that message from the Cathara. Williams looked surprised.
Captain, that's not following proper channels.
Command won't like it. I don't care what Command likes, Sarah said. I care about doing what's right. Send the message, Jensen. Let every human hear what happened to these people. Yes, Captain. As Jensen worked on boosting their signal, Sarah stood at the main window of her bridge. She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 40 light-years away, a world was probably dead. A peaceful people had been wiped out while the galaxy watched and did nothing. But maybe it was not too late. Maybe some Cathara were still alive, still suffering in hegemony slave camps. Maybe something could still be done. Message is ready to transmit. Captain, Jensen reported. Send it, Sarah ordered. The Cathara distress signal began broadcasting across all human communication networks. It would reach every human ship, every colony, every space station. It would reach Earth itself. Sarah had no idea what would happen next. The coalition would be angry. Command would be furious. She might lose her ship, her career, everything she had worked for. But as she listened to that musical voice saying goodbye to an entire race, she knew she had made the right choice. Humans might be seen as barbarians from a dangerous world, but they were barbarians who did not let innocence die in silence. The signal went out into space, carrying the last words of the Cathara people to every corner of human civilization. Soon, very soon, humanity would hear their cry for help. And when humans heard that cry, Sarah was certain they would answer. The Cathara message reached Earth in 18 hours. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez was having his morning coffee when his aide burst into his office. Commander Lisa Park looked like she had not slept all night. Sir, you need to see this. It's been broadcasting on every human channel for the past 6 hours. Rodriguez put down his coffee and watched the holographic display. The musical voice of Elder Vythe filled his office, speaking of burning cities and stolen children. When it finished, Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. How are people responding? He asked. Park pulled up news feeds from across human space. Sir, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. Every major colony is calling for immediate action. The Mars Colonial Defense Force has already started mobilizing without orders. 3 private shipping companies have offered their entire fleets for military conversion. Rodriguez watched the feeds. Angry crowds gathered outside government buildings on Earth. Colony administrators were making speeches about human duty. Veterans were coming out of retirement. Ship captains were volunteering for dangerous missions. What about the coalition response? They're furious, sir. Ambassador Walsh is being summoned for an emergency meeting. They're saying Captain Chen violated about 20 different regulations. Rodriguez smiled grimly. I'll bet they are. What about our fleet status? That's the interesting part, sir. We've received over 2,000 requests for immediate deployment, not just from military ships, civilian vessels, cargo haulers, even some luxury yachts. Everyone wants to help. Rodriguez had served in the human military for 30 years. He had seen humanity fight civil wars, alien invasions, and natural disasters. But he had never seen anything like this. The entire species was reacting like one giant family that had just learned their neighbors were in trouble. His communication system buzzed. Admiral, I have President Chen on the line. She says it's urgent. Rodriguez straightened his uniform. President Chen rarely called military commanders directly. The president's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired but determined. Marcus, I need to know something. If we decided to help these Cathara people, what would it take? Madam President, the Cathara system is 40 light-years away. That's at the edge of our operational range. We'd need at least 50 ships, maybe more, and we'd be completely cut off from support. What if we had more than 50 ships? Rodriguez blinked. Ma'am? I've been on calls with Mars, Luna, the Belt Colonies, everyone. Marcus, they all want to do something. The entire solar system is ready to go to war for people they've never met. Rodriguez pulled up tactical displays. Even with our entire official navy, we'd be outnumbered by the hegemony forces. And we'd be operating in unknown territory, no allies, no backup. What if it wasn't just our official navy? Rodriguez began to understand. You're talking about militarizing civilian ships. I'm talking about giving people the chance to do what they think is right. How long would it take to convert civilian vessels for military use? Rodriguez thought quickly. Cargo ships are already built tough. They could mount weapons with minimal modification. Passenger liners have good shields and fast engines. Even mining ships have equipment that could be weaponized. Maybe 2 weeks for basic conversions. Do it, President Chen said. Full authorization. Any ship that volunteers gets military conversion and supplies. Any crew that wants to go gets hazard pay and full benefits. After the call ended, Rodriguez sat back in his chair. The president had just authorized the largest military mobilization in human history. Not to defend Earth, but to help aliens they had never met. His aide knocked on the door. "Admiral, you're going to want to see this." Rodriguez followed Park to the main communications center. The room was full of officers working frantically at their stations. Every screen showed incoming messages. "Sir, we've got 1,700 confirmed ship volunteers in the first 4 hours. Everything from one-man cargo pods to luxury cruise ships. The shipyards at Mars are already starting conversions." Rodriguez looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed ship positions across human space. Every dot was a vessel that had volunteered to travel 40 light-years to fight an unknown enemy for people they had never seen. "What about crew volunteers?" "Over 50,000 so far. We're having to turn people away." Rodriguez shook his head in amazement. Most alien species had trouble getting volunteers for defensive wars. Humans were fighting each other to volunteer for someone else's war. "Admiral," another officer called out, "I've got the Luna Defense Force on the line. They want to know if they can bring their experimental weapons." "Which experimental weapons?" "All of them, sir." Rodriguez was beginning to realize the scale of what was happening. Humanity was not just sending a military force to help the Cathara. They were sending everything they had. "Sir," Park said quietly, "there's something else. We're getting messages from non-human crew members, too. Aliens who work on human ships are volunteering to come along. They say if humans think this is important, they want to help." That surprised Rodriguez. Most aliens thought humans were crazy, but apparently some of them found human craziness inspiring. His personal communicator buzzed. The caller ID showed Captain Sarah Chen of the Tenacity. "Captain Chen," Rodriguez answered. "I hear you've started a war. I'm sorry, sir. I know I broke regulations, but I couldn't just do nothing." Rodriguez looked around the communications center. Officers were coordinating the largest volunteer military force in human history. "Captain, don't apologize. You did exactly what you should have done. What's your current status?" "Still on patrol, sir. But we're only 2 weeks from Cathara space. If we had support..." "Captain, how would you like to lead the advanced reconnaissance force?" There was silence on the channel. Then Chen spoke, her voice steady. "It would be an honor, sir." "Good, you'll have company soon. I'm sending you everything we can spare." Rodriguez ended the call and looked at Park. "How long before our main force can be ready?" "The first wave of converted ships could launch in 10 days. The full force, maybe 3 weeks. "Make it 2 weeks, Rodriguez ordered. "I have a feeling time is important." As his officers worked to coordinate the massive effort, Rodriguez thought about the Cathara message. Eldervith had said no one would come because they had nothing to offer. The alien had been wrong about humans. Humans did not need to be offered anything to help. They just needed to know that help was needed. Rodriguez opened a communication channel to all human ships. "This is Admiral Rodriguez to all vessels. In 2 weeks, we launched the largest rescue mission in human history. We're going to save the Kythra people, and we're going to show the galaxy what humans do when innocents are threatened. Prepare for departure and thank you. All of you." The responses came back immediately. Thousands of voices from hundreds of ships all saying the same thing. "Ready to serve, sir." The sleeping giant of human military power was waking up, and it was angry. 2 weeks later, Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the most unusual fleet in galactic history assemble around him. The official human navy contributed 47 warships. Everything else was improvised. The cargo hauler Big Sally now carried missile pods where her storage containers used to be. The luxury liner Golden Dreams had been fitted with military shields and torpedo tubes. Even the asteroid miner Rock Crusher had joined them, her industrial cutting lasers modified for ship-to-ship combat. "Final count, Admiral," his operations officer reported. 3,112 vessels. Rodriguez shook his head. 3,000 ships, the largest human fleet ever assembled, and most of it was civilian vessels crewed by volunteers. It should have been a disaster. Instead, it was magnificent. "Sir, incoming transmission from Coalition Command." his communications officer announced. The face of Admiral Thekvar appeared on screen. The alien's 4 eyes showed deep concern. Admiral Rodriguez, you must stop this madness immediately. The hegemony is a major galactic power. They have treaties, agreements. You cannot simply attack them. They're enslaving an entire species, Rodriguez replied calmly. That is not your concern. The coalition will handle this through proper diplomatic channels. Like you've been handling it for the past month while people died? Tekvar's tentacles twitched with annoyance. Humans, you do not understand galactic politics. The Cathera have no strategic value. No one will go to war for them. Rodriguez looked around his bridge at his human crew. They were listening to every word and he could see the anger in their faces. Admiral Thekvar, let me explain something about humans. We don't calculate the strategic value of innocent lives. We just save them. This fleet will be destroyed. The hegemony has 200 warships in that system. You have converted cargo vessels. We have 3,000 ships crewed by very angry humans, Rodriguez corrected. I think that's enough. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Any word from our scouts? Captain Chen reports hegemony forces are still in the Cathera system. Estimated 180 ships, mostly destroyers and cruisers. They're using the planet as a base while they strip mine the resources. Rodriguez nodded. The hegemony was efficient. They conquered worlds, took everything valuable, and moved on. Usually nobody bothered to stop them. Sir, his tactical officer called out, we're getting some unusual readings from our own fleet. Unusual how? Well, sir, the converted mining ships are carrying more firepower than most destroyers. Those industrial lasers can cut through battleship armor. And the cargo haulers, some of them are loaded with improvised explosives. A lot of improvised explosives, Rodriguez smiled. Humans had been making weapons out of farm tools and household items for thousands of years. Give them 2 weeks and unlimited resources and they could turn a garbage truck into a warship. Admiral, another officer reported. Incoming ships. It's the Mars 3rd Fleet. I thought the Mars fleet was staying home for system defense. Apparently not, sir. Admiral Santos says she couldn't let us have all the fun. Rodriguez watched as 12 more warships joined his fleet. Then more ships appeared. Vessels from the Belt colonies, independent merchant captains, even a few alien ships with mostly human crews. Final count, sir. 3,000? 208 vessels. Rodriguez activated fleet-wide communications. Every ship in the massive armada could hear him speak. Attention all ships. In 6 hours we jump to the Cathera system. We don't know how many of their people are still alive, but we're going to find out. The hegemony thinks they can hurt innocent people because no one will stop them. Today they learn different. He paused, looking out at the sea of ships surrounding his flagship, cargo haulers next to destroyers, luxury yachts beside mining vessels. The most ridiculous and magnificent fleet ever assembled. I know most of you aren't military. I know you've never been in a space battle, but you're here anyway. Because someone needed help and you couldn't say no. That makes you the finest people I've ever served with. Responses came back from hundreds of ship captains. Some were military professionals who spoke in crisp, formal language. Others were civilian volunteers who just said things like, let's go save some people, or, those hegemony. Bastards picked the wrong species to mess. With Rodriguez loved them all. Sir, his navigator announced. All ships report ready for jump. Take us out, Rodriguez ordered. The human fleet vanished into hyperspace, bound for a world 40 light-years away where aliens they had never met were waiting for rescue that they never expected to come. On Earth, families gathered around screens to watch the news coverage. On Mars, workers stopped their jobs to look up at the sky. Throughout human space, people waited and hoped and prayed for their friends and relatives who had gone to fight strangers. Battle's Ambassador Jennifer Walsh stood before the Galactic Coalition Council and faced their angry questions about humanity's unauthorized military action. You cannot simply decide to make war on coalition member species, Council Leader Vexthar declared. The hegemony attacks innocent people, Walsh replied. We're going to make them stop. This is not how civilized species resolve conflicts. Walsh smiled and several council members stepped back nervously. They had learned to be careful when humans smiled like that. Counselor, you're right. Civilized species hold meetings and debate and form committees while people die. Civilized species calculate cost and benefit before deciding if lives are worth saving. Civilized species let strong people hurt weak people as long as it doesn't affect trade routes. She gestured toward the chamber exit. Our fleet just jumped to Kithra space. Apparently we're not civilized enough for your standards. We still think some things are worth fighting for." The council chamber erupted in angry alien voices, but Walsh ignored them. Somewhere in deep space, 3,000 human ships were racing toward a desperate battle against impossible odds. It was the most human thing anyone had ever done. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kithara system and found hell waiting for them. The planet that had once been green and blue was now brown and gray. Massive hegemony mining ships stripped away entire continents while smaller vessels patrolled the system like sharks. Refugee ships tried to escape the dying world, but hegemony interceptors hunted them down. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered over the fleet communication channel. Admiral Rodriguez stared at the tactical display. 173 hegemony ships, just as the scouts had reported. They were arranged in perfect formation around the planet, confident and secure. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the hegemony ships are hailing us. Put them through." The alien face that appeared on screen was reptilian with cold yellow eyes. "Human fleet, you are trespassing in hegemony territory. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." "This is Admiral Rodriguez of the Human Defense Force. You are enslaving an innocent species. Surrender now and we'll let you leave." The hegemony commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "You have cargo ships and pleasure craft. We have warships. Leave now, mammals, or we will add your bones to this world's graveyard." Rodriguez looked around his bridge. His crew was waiting for orders. Behind them, 3,000 human ships hung in space like an angry cloud of metal and fury. "You know what?" Rodriguez said to the alien. "I don't think we will." He cut the transmission and opened the fleet channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. The hegemony has given us a choice. Leave and let innocent people die or fight and try to save them. I think you all know what humans do with choices like that." The response came back from 3,000 voices. "Let's save some people." The hegemony fleet began moving into attack formation. They were professional soldiers with advanced weapons and proven tactics. They expected a traditional space battle with orderly formations and careful positioning. What they got instead was humans being humans. The converted cargo ships accelerated to ramming speed and charged straight at the enemy line. The hegemony commander probably thought they were seeing some kind of desperate suicide attack. They were wrong. The cargo ships were loaded with remote-controlled explosives. At the last second, their crews evacuated in escape pods while the ships continued on autopilot, crashing into hegemony vessels and detonating with the force of small nuclear weapons. "What are they doing?" The hegemony commander shouted over the communication channel. "That's not how space combat works." Rodriguez smiled. "Welcome to fighting humans." The mining ships came next. Where other species built elegant weapons that fired focused energy beams, humans had taken industrial cutting lasers designed to slice through asteroids and pointed them at enemy ships. The beams carved through hegemony armor like it was paper. The luxury liner Golden Dreams, now bristling with missile pods, unleashed a swarm of torpedoes that confused enemy targeting systems. The missiles weren't military grade, but there were so many of them that it didn't matter. "Sir," Rodriguez's tactical officer reported, "the hegemony fleet is trying to reorganize. They're not used to this kind of chaotic fighting." Rodriguez watched the battle display. The hegemony ships were trying to form defensive lines, but human vessels kept appearing where they shouldn't be. Cargo haulers came in from impossible angles. Scout ships used their speed to dart between enemy formations. Even unarmed civilian vessels served as mobile shield generators, protecting the converted warships. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "Captain Chen is reporting from the advance force. She says there are still Kithara survivors on the planet's surface, thousands of them in underground shelters. How long can they hold out?" "Not long, sir. The hegemony is using orbital bombardment to force them out of hiding." Rodriguez made a decision that would have shocked any military academy instructor. "All cargo ships with heavy loads. I want you to ram those orbital bombardment platforms. Everyone else cover them." "Sir," his operations officer said quietly, "those crews won't be able to evacuate in time." "I know." The order went out across the fleet. 18 cargo ships broke formation and accelerated toward the hegemony bombardment vessels. Their crews knew it was a one-way trip. "This is Captain Walsh of the cargo hauler Big Dreams," came a voice over the communication channel. "It's been an honor serving with you all. Tell my family I went out helping people." Similar messages came from 17 other ships. Men and women who had volunteered to carry supplies across the galaxy were now sacrificing their lives to save aliens they had never met. The cargo ships struck their targets with tremendous force. Huge hegemony vessels disappeared in explosions that lit up space like new stars. The orbital bombardment stopped. "Sir," Rodriguez's sensor officer reported, his voice shaking. "Massive energy spike. Something big is coming out of hyperspace." Rodriguez looked at his tactical display and saw his worst nightmare. A hegemony dreadnought, twice the size of his flagship, dropped into the system with an escort of 30 fresh warships. "Unknown human fleet," the dreadnought's commander broadcast. "You have impressed us with your savagery. But this ends now. Surrender or die." Rodriguez looked around his bridge. Half his fleet was damaged or destroyed. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Any reasonable military commander would have ordered a retreat. But Rodriguez wasn't feeling reasonable. He was feeling like a human whose friends had just died saving innocent people. "All ships," he broadcast. "New targets just arrived. Let's show them what Deathworlders do to bullies." The remaining human ships turned toward the dreadnought like a pack of wolves facing a bear. They were battered and outnumbered, but they were still fighting. The mining ship Rock Crusher charged straight at the massive enemy vessel. Her industrial cutting laser, pushed far beyond safe limits, carved a glowing line across the dreadnought's hull. The ship exploded from the strain, but not before opening a wound in the enemy's armor. Other human ships poured fire into the breach. Missiles, lasers, improvised weapons, everything they had. The dreadnought's shields flared and died. "Impossible," the enemy commander broadcast. "You cannot defeat a dreadnought with cargo ships." "Watch us," Rodriguez replied. The battle raged for another hour. More human ships died, but they took enemy vessels with them. The human fleet fought like cornered animals because that's exactly what they were. Finally, something broke in the enemy forces. Maybe it was seeing their dreadnought listing and burning. Maybe it was realizing that humans would rather die than give up. Maybe it was just the terrible mathematics of attrition. "Human fleet," the surviving hegemony commander broadcast. We withdraw. The Cathara system is yours." The remaining enemy ships jumped into hyperspace, leaving the humans alone with their victory and their dead. Rodriguez looked at his casualty reports. 437 ships lost. Over 6,000 crew members dead or missing. The price of saving strangers had been paid in human blood. But on the planet below, Cathara survivors were emerging from their shelters, looking up at stars that were no longer blocked by enemy ships. They were free. 3 days after the battle, Admiral Rodriguez stood in the cargo bay of his flagship and watched the survivors come aboard. The Cathara people were even more beautiful than their voices had suggested. They moved with a flowing grace that reminded him of dancers, and their large eyes held an intelligence that seemed ancient and wise. They were also clearly traumatized. Elder Vyth was among the survivors. The alien who had sent the desperate message was smaller than Rodriguez had expected, barely reaching his shoulder. But when their eyes met, Rodriguez saw a strength that impressed him. "Admiral," Vyth said in accented but clear English, "our translators have been teaching us your language. We wanted to thank you properly." Rodriguez felt uncomfortable. "Elder Vyth, we're just glad we got here in time to help some of your people." "In time?" Vyth's musical voice carried confusion. "Admiral, you came across 40 light years to help people you had never met. You fought a battle you could not win against enemies you had no reason to fight. Your people died for strangers. How can you say this was just help?" Rodriguez looked around the cargo bay. Human crew members were working alongside Cathara survivors, sharing food and medical supplies. The aliens watched everything with wonder, as if they couldn't believe people like this existed. "Elder, humans have a saying, no one gets left behind. That includes people we've never met." Vyth was quiet for a moment. "Admiral, in our history we have known many species. Some were kind when it cost them nothing. Some were generous when they had plenty to spare. But your people came to die for us. Why?" Rodriguez thought about the question. Why had humanity responded so strongly to the Cathara message? Why had 3,000 ships volunteered for what everyone knew was probably a suicide mission? "I think," he said slowly, "it's because we've been where you are. Humans have been conquered and enslaved and hurt by stronger people. We know what it feels like to be helpless. We never want anyone else to feel that way if we can stop it. Even aliens you don't know? Especially aliens we don't know. It proves we're not just protecting our own tribe. We're protecting the idea that innocent people deserve to be safe. Vyth nodded slowly. We will remember this, Admiral. All Cathara will remember what humans did for us. The conversation was interrupted by Rodriguez's communications officer. Sir, priority message from Earth. Rodriguez excused himself and went to a private communication booth. President Chen's face appeared on the screen, but she wasn't alone. Behind her stood representatives from every major human government. Marcus, the president said, first, congratulations. You did something amazing out there. Thank you, Madam President. But we lost a lot of good people, I know, and they'll be remembered as heroes. But Marcus, you need to know what's happened here. The galaxy has gone crazy. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. How so? 3 things. First, the hegemony has agreed to unprecedented reparations. They're releasing all Cathara prisoners, providing resources to rebuild their world and formally apologizing. Apparently, they don't want to fight humans again. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Good. Second, the Galactic Coalition has offered humanity full membership, advanced technology, and a permanent seat on the Security Council. They want us as allies, not junior members. And third, President Chen looked serious. We're getting messages from other species. Dozens of them. Oppressed people who have heard about what we did for the Cathara. They're asking for help. Rodriguez felt a weight settle on his shoulders. How many messages? 47 so far. And Marcus, some of these situations are even worse than what the Cathara faced. Rodriguez understood. Humanity had crossed a line when they saved the Cathara. They had announced to the galaxy that they would fight for strangers, that they couldn't be bought or reasoned with when innocent people were suffering. They had become something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that would go to war for moral principles. What are my orders, Madam President? That's up to you, Marcus. Congress has authorized a permanent deep space rescue force. You'll have whatever resources you need. The question is, are you willing to lead it? Rodriguez thought about the Cathara survivors in his cargo bay. He thought about Elder Vyth's gratitude and the 47 species asking for help. He thought about the crew members who had died to save people they had never met. Yes, ma'am. I'll lead it. Good, Admiral Rodriguez. You are hereby appointed commander of the Human Deep Space Defense Force. Your mission is to respond to threats against innocent civilian populations anywhere in the galaxy. You have full authority to act as you see fit. After the call ended, Rodriguez returned to the cargo bay. Elder Vyth was still there, talking with human crew members who were teaching Cathara children how to play simple games. Elder, Rodriguez said, we're going to help your people rebuild. But I have to ask you something. If you heard about another species in trouble, what would you want us to do? Vyth didn't hesitate. Save them, Admiral. As you saved us, Rodriguez nodded. That was the answer he had expected from people who understood what it meant to need help. 2 weeks later, the human fleet returned to Earth space. They were greeted as heroes, but the celebration was mixed with mourning for the dead. Memorials were built on every human world, listing the names of those who had died in the Cathara system. Captain Sarah, Chen was promoted to Admiral and given command of the 2nd Deep Space Defense Fleet. The Tenacity became the flagship of a new class of vessels, designed specifically for long-range rescue missions. Ambassador Jennifer Walsh addressed the Galactic Coalition Council one final time before taking a new position as Director of Interspecies Relations. Honored counselors, she said, humanity has learned something important about our place in the galaxy. We're not here to be your laborers or your warriors for hire. We're here to be your conscience. Council Leader Vexthar spoke for many when he replied, Ambassador Walsh, your species terrifies us. You fight impossible battles for people you don't know. You sacrifice your lives for abstract principles. You cannot be reasoned with when you believe someone needs help. Walsh smiled. Counselor, you're absolutely right. We're unreasonable people, but I think the galaxy is a better place with unreasonable people in it. The Cathara established a permanent memorial in their capital city. It was a simple stone monument with words written in both Cathara script and human languages. Here stands a monument to the humans who crossed the void to save us. They came not for profit or territory or alliance. They came because we asked for help, and humans do not leave people behind. May all species learn from their example. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to care more about others than yourself. On Earth, children learned about the Battle of Cathara in their history classes. They learned about ordinary people who became extraordinary when someone needed help. They learned that being human meant more than just being born on Earth. It meant caring about justice even when it was inconvenient. And in deep space, Admiral Rodriguez prepared his fleet for the next mission. Somewhere in the galaxy, innocent people were suffering. Somewhere, someone was sending a desperate message into the void, hoping against hope that someone would hear and care. Humanity would be listening, and when the call came, they would answer, because that's what humans do.
They don't leave people behind.